What's your favorite curse word?
I can't say it. It starts with an M and it ends with not ER. When I was a tour guide at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee walked in, and oh my God, I could barely speak.
Whatever you do, don't panic.
Whatever you do, don't panic.
And then most recently, I actually met Mark Hamill, and being a Star Wars fan, I became a little giddy when I met him. It was behind the scene I was on the Colbert Show. Yeah, that was neat. He said that maybe the Force could be with me. He did. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is the oldest black sorority in the United States, and I'm a member. So my first paying job, I don't remember if my mother paid me. I think she did, and it was to clean pipettes in her lab. I was awful, and she fired me. I also worked at McDonald's, but as I said, when I was with the striking McDonald's workers and marching with them in solidarity, I was a student and I was not required to pay the rent and put food on the table and sustain a family on those wages, but a large number of McDonald's workers today are exactly that, and they should be paid fair wages so that they can be able to sustain their families. It's more about evolved. I definitely believe that we should legalize marijuana. There was a time when I was more advocating medical marijuana, but I believe we just need to legalize it, period. Oh, my whole life. I remember the neighbors' kids who we played with, and one day, checked on, can you come out and play? No. Our parents said, we can't play with you because you're black. But there are many examples. I don't have a relative who is a black man, a friend or a colleague that I know who has not faced some kind of racial profiling or discrimination. Well, I've always been who I am, so I think the challenge is to help other people understand what that means. But for me, it was growing up with a lot of cultural pride. It was about growing up and learning about the commonalities among people, regardless of where they were born or what languages spoke by their grandparents or how their last names are spelled. And that guides me through today, especially when we now have such powerful forces in our country that are trying to sow hate and division among us. When you really understand people, you know that most of our urges, most of our desires for ourselves and our families are universal in nature. I love my husband. He is funny, he is kind, he is patient, he loves my cooking. He's just a really great guy. It would be lifting up middle-class and working families. I am proposing what would be the most significant middle-class tax cut that this country has seen in generations. And it would lift up families who are making less than $100,000 a year by giving them a tax credit of up to $6,000 a year that they can collect up to $500 a month, which will be all the difference between those families being able to get through the end of the month with dignity or not. In our country today, almost half of American families are a $400 unexpected expense away from complete upheaval. And for too long in our country, the policies have been written in a way that have favored the top 1% and the rich and not favored working families and middle-class families. And my policy would lift up 1 in 2 American families, 3 in 4 American children, 60% of black households, and it is, I think, long overdue that we focus on lifting families up and giving them the support they deserve. I am a front seat, back seat driver. I'm awful. I have ideas about what the shortcuts are. I have the idea about where we should park. So I am a front seat, back seat driver. I'm very proud of my record as both the elected district attorney of San Francisco and as Attorney General of California. As district attorney, I was aware that we had a lot of homicides, and there was always just the same response: put more police on the street, gang enforcement. And instead, I said, hey, who are our homicide victims who are under the age of 25? Instead of just accepting it as a statistic, who are they? And so I did an analysis, and I learned that 94% of them were high school dropouts. I decided that we were not doing enough to protect the children of our community. When children who live in rich communities aren't in school every day, the alarms would sound. The whole community would know about it. But yet, in economically poor communities and communities where the annual household income was $15,000, there were children who were missing 50, 60, up to 80 days of a 180-day school year. So I took the issue on. I put the city on alert that we were going to take this issue seriously. And as a result, there was a ramp up of services given to those parents, and we improved attendance rates by over 30%. And there is no question in my mind that that had a direct impact on those children and on those families in a positive way. My truancy initiative, because they said you're going to take political heat for it because nobody's going to understand why you're doing it. And they might have been right, but I don't regret it. I have read the Mueller report, and we are looking at very clearly 10, one could argue 11, cases of obstruction of justice, and we need to take him seriously when he tells us that there were indictable offenses, but there was a memo from the Office of Legal Counsel that prevented that from happening. I believe he and the law have shifted now the responsibility to the United States Congress. The American public deserves to have a president of the United States who has the ability to see them and focus on their needs, the needs that keep them up at night or wake them up in the middle of the night. And I'm prepared to do that, which is why I have a proposal that is not only about lifting up middle class and working families around the tax credits, but it's around paying teachers their value. It's about paying women equally as men. It is about addressing the issue of DACA and Dreamers. It is about looking at what we need to do to reform a criminal justice system that is in drastic need of reform. I know that firsthand. I have been a leader in the nation on criminal justice reform for that reason. So those are the issues that I think are going to be most important, and on that basis, people will elect the next president of the United States. Whoopi Goldberg.
And ye better be tough as nails, too.
It's an old Earth, Wind & Fire song, and it's called Reasons. The Reasons. Not enough, not nearly. My New York Times cooking app. What in your career have you done that has directly impacted people in real time? Not about pretty speeches, but what have you done, and what decisions have you had to make when you actually were a decision maker and you knew that your decision would directly impact people?
That's your question for the other candidates. Here's a question from another candidate picked at random. Congressman Moulton asks, how will you bring the country together?
I will bring the country together based on my deeply held belief that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. Based on my deeply held belief that the thing that wakes people up at 3 o'clock in the morning is usually one of just a very few things, regardless of their age, regardless of their race, but regardless of where they live or their zip code. It's about their personal health, the health of their children or their parents. For so many, can I get a job, keep a job, pay the bills by the end of the month, retire with dignity? For our students, can I pay off my student loans? For so many families in our country, can I help my family member get off their opioid addiction or their drug addiction? The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And when we approach issues understanding that, and with a deeply held knowledge and belief about the connection between us, I think we will do what we have got to do, which is bring this country together, understanding that we are our strongest when we approach issues, understanding that we all will rise or fall together.